reporter. That is Nick Wright. We're all coming off a very good weekend of football. Let's start, though, with the Dallas Cowboys. As someone at this table correctly predicted, Ezekiel Elliott was still not suspended. I don't want to name names. The Cowboys rolled to a 28-17 win over the Chiefs. With him in the lineup, Dak Prescott threw 2 touchdowns and ran for another, and Zeke ran for 93 yards and a touchdown of his own. The Cowboys are now 5-3, and Dak says they still have room to improve.
We're still growing. We still got a lot that we want to do and get better at, but we're definitely getting more comfortable within ourselves and within our system.
We got our momentum back going, and we're the offense that we were last year. We're an attitude team. We run the ball, and we set up the rest of the game off of that. And we did the O-line has been doing a tremendous job just going out there executing and doing their job and opening up those running lanes so I could take advantage of them.
Zeke was right. The O-line was great. Their defense was great. This was a really big opponent for them this week. Cece, what impressed you most about the Cowboys' win over the Chiefs?
It's really hard to try to pin one thing because in winning NFL games, there's a lot of things you have to do well. But as far as Dallas, what were the things I've been worried about all season? That's their inability to make plays on the outside with their wide receivers, either big plays or yards after the catch. And that's what we saw yesterday. A number of guys, especially Terrence Williams, showed up making those big plays. And then I couldn't just stop with that. Their defense is much improved, and their ability to be able to take Kansas City out of what Andy Reid likes to do, a lot of play action, a lot of exotic plays, take those big plays away from them. So if you look at the yards that the receivers got after the catch from both teams, I thought that was one of the huge storylines in this Dallas game. Dallas's defense playing about 28 minutes, which we know. That's what they have to do. When they're on the other side of that 30 to 32 minutes, they're not quite as good. But you have to be impressed with their wide receivers, their ability to be able to make plays. This was the first game a Dallas receiver has gone over 100 yards in 15 games.
That's remarkable.
Well, I've been pointing it out, but when you get that type of productivity with the dominant offensive line, it makes the job easier for the quarterback. It's easier to grind out those first downs. So this was a total team effort, but you can't do it without those wide receivers making plays.
I would love to sit here and give all the credit to Dak. I would love to say I was most impressed with Dak, and he was good. But I was most impressed by that defense. That Cowboys defense against what I believed going into the game was the league's best offense. To hold them essentially to 1 touchdown, I know they got 2, but one of them was right before the half, Tyreek Hill, what they instantly called the Hail Mary. It was unbelievable, but that's also a one-off. That was a breakdown for one moment in time against one of the quickest and fastest players in the league.
Yeah, it was one of the dumbest defenses I've ever seen, too.
Okay, fair enough. But as a whole, the defense was extraordinary.
Yes.
And people, now that we are over halfway through the season, right past the midway point of the season, people need to recognize this Cowboys defense, one thing that is very different from last year to this year, is they get after the quarterback now. This is a team that is 3rd in the NFL in sacks with 2 guys, DeMarcus Lawrence and guy they plucked off the Chiefs practice squad, David Irving, 2 guys in the top 15 in sacks. So it's not like you can just key on one guy on the line because then David Irving will go get you. Because they are such an efficient offense, if the other team is in a situation where they have to throw the football, and now you have 2 guys that can get after the passer, this becomes a very dangerous football team. And it wasn't, CC, just getting after the quarterback. You mentioned it as far as holding the Chiefs' rushing game in check. I mean, Kareem Hunt, 9 carries for 37 yards. Like, the fact that the Chiefs didn't feel comfortable giving the ball to Kareem more, even though they had this lead in this 5 minutes into the second half, that speaks to the Cowboys' front being better than I thought it would be.
Also, Dallas's defense. If you watch Dallas defense, one number pops out all the time, and that's number 50, Sean Lee. He's one of the most underrated defenders in the NFL. He's a 3-down linebacker. It means he can play first and second down if they're going to try to jam it down the defense's throat, but he's also great in pass coverage, and that's who you've seen a lot of time matched up, with Kareem coming out of the backfield, locked up on him one-on-one. So defensively, Rod Marinelli did a great job with this defense, how they've made adjustments. But big difference between this defense and last year is they're a lot younger in the secondary, so they do have a little more speed, might give up a little bit as far as experience, but they have more heat that they can put on the passer week in and week out because of those two guys.
If Dallas is going to stay in the thick of this race this season, this is the type of defense they will need. And if Dallas is going to stay in it through January, this is the type of opponent they are going to have to beat. So my question to both of you is, after Sunday, does this look like a more complete Dallas Cowboys team? Because we kept saying they've been missing different pockets in different places. Was this the most complete game they put together?
Given the opponent, I say yes. Given the fact that a lot of teams, you got to keep in mind the situation the Cowboys were in and then the situation they found themselves in. With 15 seconds left in the first half, they go up 14-3. The next time their offense had the football, they're down 17-14. There was the last play of the first half, which we discussed, the Tyreek Hill crazy touchdown. Then Kansas City gets the ball, drives down the field, a 6-minute drive, scores another touchdown. So a game that Dallas thought they were totally controlling when their offense leaves the field seemingly for the first half, up 14-3. They're then down 17-14. And the fact that they responded to that stomach punch, Jenna, and the fact that they did it against this opponent, and that Zeke wasn't great. I mean, Zeke didn't have a bad game, but it's not like this was a game where Zeke, 25 carries, 165 yards, he dominated the opponent. Right. It was well-balanced, as you mentioned earlier, CC, with the receiver having a big game in Terrence Williams.
This is the thing I think people really mess up with the NFL. If a running back doesn't run for over 100 yards, the impact on the defense is still significant because those are less plays a quarterback. We talked about last week Dak's inability to be able to get Dallas to win if he throws the ball more than 32 times. How many attempts did he have in the game?
33. So just over.
Right.
Just over that threshold.
Right, but it wasn't rushed. All right, they didn't have to throw the football. They threw when they wanted to. But if you take away that running game, it changes offensively what you can do. Why are the guys outside getting a lot of yards after the catch? Because they got people committed to the line of scrimmage. So it works in conjunction with trying to get the passing game going. And if you remove that, and if Kansas City was giving them different looks, then there's different coverages that wide receivers are going to face.
I understand that Zeke being out there makes it easier for the passing game to operate. The fact that the Chiefs were clearly dead set defensively because they're not a great rush defense.
Yes.
We don't want Zeke to beat us, and that's how they held him to less than 4 yards a carry on 27 carries. However, guys still got to go out there and make plays, and I know it's something you've been skeptical of. A lot of people have been rightly skeptical. Do the Cowboys have playmakers on the outside? Cole Beasley, my guy, made a nice little play getting to the end zone, and Terrence Williams, who'd been MIA. Like, Terrence Williams was a guy who was I think a solid number 2 receiver in years past. Yeah. This year,
I think he's been more of a number 3.
Okay.
You know, Witten being their number 2, Dez being their number 1.
Fair enough. I was forgetting Witten as a receiving threat. But Williams was having his least productive season up to yesterday, where he was very good.
Quick question about Dak.
Did I say Witten? I meant Terrence Williams.
Yeah.
Apologies.
Quick question about Dak. You mentioned that obviously whether or not Zeke has a big game or not, it still takes a little bit of pressure off Dak and having to carry the whole load. That being said, he looked poised. He looked calm. He went out and he did what he had to do. Do you see any difference in him? Do you have a little more confidence in him being able to go out over the next, who knows if Zeke's going to actually be out, but maybe the next 6 weeks without Zeke, since he didn't have such a huge dominating performance? No. I'm picking up on that head shake.
Well, this is the thing. It's not as if I don't have confidence in Dak. It's about the other players. Right. Okay, let's look around him. Is Terrence Williams going to have 9 for 144 again? Matter of fact, how many games has he had like that? 2 or 3 his whole career. Now, he just didn't get to Dallas. So is he going to be able to do that week in and week out? I would say no. I'm not going to be able to depend on that. Also, he got nicked at the end of the game. He wasn't in at the end of the game. Des Bryant wasn't in at the end of the game. So if they're not healthy going forward as far as confidence, Dak is a good quarterback. But you have to throw the ball to someone. People have to make plays. And their wide receivers have been inconsistent. If they can continue to make plays like this, it makes the game a lot easier. It's not Dak's responsibility. I got confidence in Dak. I got confidence in the offensive line. I got confidence in Zeke. The rest of them, I mean, the numbers are what they are.
It's something to watch, the Dez Bryant ankle injury. Because, listen, once again, Dez was targeted more than anybody and was yet not all that productive. Like, Dak was completed 75% of his passes to everyone else, 50% of his passes to Dez. So, and he, of course, got targeted more than anybody by a wide margin. So they're still trying to get that connection to work. It hasn't worked. Terrence Williams picked up the slack. So, and Dak also, by the way, he once again had a rushing touchdown. That little read option with Dak is a nice wrinkle that they're using more. Before we break, I want to say one thing to the audience. I think Tuesday of last week in the meeting, Jenna brought up we should discuss the Cowboys if Zeke isn't suspended. I shouted it out in front of everyone. I said, listen, Jenna, in NFL history, if you're suspended on Tuesday, you don't play Sunday, there's no reason discussing it.
Don't think he's raising his voice now, but didn't raise it in the meeting?
I did. I was
he
like,
raised it, stood on the table, and pointed down.
It's never happened. We don't need to discuss it. Friday, 8 minutes after we get off the air, Zeke is unsuspended. So I tip my cap to Miss Jenna Wolfe.
I accept your tipped cap.
There you go.
I'm going to marinate in the moment for a brief moment.
Yep. And Roger
now
Goodell's going to give him 8 games now.
Moving on to the Eagles, who continue to plow through their schedule. Yesterday's victims, the Denver Broncos. Carson Wentz threw for 4 touchdowns, and newcomer Jay Ajayi ran for 77 yards, and he had a touchdown of his own, as Philly crushed Denver 51-23. Anytime you could put up 50 points, I'll call that a crushing. Wentz spoke after the game about his new running back.
The beautiful thing about what we did today is we were balanced. We spread the ball around the way we did, both in the run game and in the throw game. Zach went down. Obviously, we thought Ertz was going to be ready to play, and we didn't miss a beat.
Being on a team that can dominate and, put a lot of points off on the board. This offense is explosive, talent everywhere, and I'm just excited to be a part of it. I'm grateful. I don't think I could have came into a better situation.
Being 8-1 is what it's all about. I didn't really know what to expect with how stats, all that stuff. That doesn't really matter. But I will say I've always had high expectations for myself, for this team. So we're fortunate where we're at.
Oh, I'd say they're fortunate. Right now, the Philadelphia Eagles sit at 8-1, Nick. Are you convinced the Eagles are the best team in the National Football Conference?
No, I am not. They have the best record in the NFC. They are one of the good teams in the NFC. But one of the reasons we do power rankings or things similar to that, instead of simply printing off the standings, is we have to have some discerning. We have to be a little discerning between who has the best record and who is the best team. And I think the Eagles are a good football team. Last week, I thought the Eagles were a good football team. And by the way, I did think Denver was going to give them much more of a fight than they gave them. Philadelphia was very impressive yesterday. No one can deny that. But there are going to be a lot of people today talking about exactly that. The Eagles are the best team in the NFC. There is another team in the NFC that has nearly an identical profile to the Eagles that has a second-year quarterback who has taken one spot ahead of Carson Wentz, who has a lot of the same factors that no one will be talking about. That also, by the way, yesterday put up 50-plus points on their opponent. No one's going to be talking about them as the best team in the NFC, and that's the Rams. Like, show the statistical profile. Look, points per game, second, first. Yards per game, fifth, third. Opponents' points per game, 12th, 9th. Opponents' yards per game, 11th, 16th. Like, they both have a second-year quarterback that was a top 2 pick. They both have a prolific offense. They both get after the quarterback as far as sacking the opposing quarterback. But the whole reason the Eagles are elevated like this is because they're the one-loss team in football. And that's just not how I'm going to do this math, CC. Like, it's just, they're a really good team, no doubt. But are they clearly the best team in the NFC? Not to me, no.
Okay, so who's better than them?
I think there is right now a lot of teams that can be better.
Well, let me list them then, because they only got so many teams over. We got 16 teams in the NFC. List them.
I think the Eagles are in.
Don't do no mental gymnastics. List them.
I don't think there is a clear-cut best team.
Okay, what about the Cowboys?
The Cowboys, I think, are as good as Philly.
Jenna asked, are they the best team in the NFC?
Right. And
okay.
I think the Cowboys are as good as Philly. I think the Vikings are as good as Philly. I think New Orleans is as good as Philly. Okay. I think the Rams are as good as Philly.
But none of these teams have proven it. None of these teams have played consistently as Philadelphia. Who has a quarterback that's playing as good as Wentz?
I mean, I think Dak's playing about as good. I think
those
Jared
are all
Goff's playing
measurables.
about as good. You want to see the Goff-Wentz comparison?
Yes.
Okay, show that. Show the Goff versus Wentz comparison. One guy's an MVP candidate. The other guy, so they have the same completion percentage. Goff's averaging more yards per pass. Wentz obviously has more touchdowns.
How many games have they played? 9 games. He has 10 more touchdowns. That's dramatically different.
But part of that's also because the Rams are giving the ball to Todd Gurley. Like, they're different styles.
Oh, the Eagles
aren't
running. The Eagles are the only top 5 rushing team and only top 5 in rushing defense.
I meant near the goal line for the touchdown purposes. No, the Eagles are a good running team. The Eagles are a good team. Cece, you're convinced the Eagles are the best team in the NFC.
This is what I am. I do believe in this. I've watched enough NFL games, and I like to give credit to the people who win. All right? I can't give credit to hyperbole. I can't give credit to what I thought in the preseason. All right? You have to readjust your eye to what's going on. Now, what was the score in yesterday's game?
51-23. And I think they were up 44-9.
And if I had told you it was 51-23, well, you'd have said, who would have won that game?
Philadelphia.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you thought it was going to be a dogfight with Denver coming in there.
Oh, correct, I did.
So we're not even giving them credit for blowing out Denver when we thought it was going to be a tough matchup.
No, but the point that
did we not think that was going to be a tough matchup?
I gave them credit, and I said I thought it was going to be a tough matchup. I thought Denver could win that game.
Yeah, there's no one from a consistency standpoint, and that being the Rams. I think the Rams are legitimate, all right? They don't have to convince me. New Orleans, which leads the South. Minnesota. Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the quarterback for them. And what we're going to be getting, we don't know. They have a great defense. We don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball when Teddy gets in there. And then we have the Eagles leading the division. So those are the division leaders. To me, it's clear. Philadelphia is the best team right now in the NFC.
Welcome back to First Things First. We're joined by Ray Lewis. Here's what I love about Ray. A million awesome games in the NFL yesterday, and he came in fired up about a game that his kid played. And I thought he was talking about an NFL game, and you were talking about your kid's win over the weekend, which is so great to hear.
Talking about my baby.
The babies.
Yeah, it was.
What's your son's name?
Rashawn Lewis.
Congratulations
to
to him.
He's at Windermere Prep. Congratulations.
They play some good football on Florida.
Man, I was inspired.
I love that.
That these kids play the game for the love of the game. And for me to see these kids be down 20 plus points, but find a way to fight back. And at the end of the game, you know, being a father, you want to cheer for your own kids, but when you see other kids walking off with their head down, I'm like, come here.
Aww.
Like, let me hug you, man. Like, this ain't the end. And it was the same dream we all had, man.
Awesome.
So Friday,
they were probably crying because they were like, Ray Lewis, Ray Lewis,
that high school is emotion.
It hurt.
I love high school football, not only for the emotion in Florida. The last 2 years, I haven't been able to coach high school football, and it takes from me. But at the end, you got to shake hands with the opposition.
I
love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely.
All right.
Congrats to your boy.
Yeah,
man,
congratulations. All right, let's talk about some Sunday football here. It's gone from bad to worse to whatever it was that happened yesterday as the G-Men got crushed 51-17 by the Rams. They're now 1-7 on the season. Head coach Ben McAdoo had a lot of questions to answer after the game.
But at what point do you look at the playoffs are out of the question? Do you have to start looking at that?
Yeah, you really can't look from my chair too far ahead, but you also have to look at getting some players some reps in the game. So we'll take a look and see if there's any players that we can give reps to that have a chance to be a part of our future.
Does that include the quarterback?
That includes everybody.
That was an interesting last 2 seconds there, insinuating that everyone's job is up for grabs at this point in the Giants' very woeful season. Ray, is it time for the Giants to start fresh and move on from Eli Manning?
Well, I think it's time for the Giants to do a total makeover. They have to figure it out. I think you hear Ben McAdoo, he says it first, right, that he must look at his job first, right? And definitely after a beating like that yesterday.
Yeah.
There was a screenplay yesterday, CC, that Todd Gurley made, and I'm looking at the effort of the guys running behind him. And by the time he got in the end zone and almost dove in the end zone, I'm saying to myself, who's the leader of that team? And so now if you flip it back to Eli, I think now it's time for the Giants to figure out, are we going to go with a young Odell Beckham, re-sign Odell Beckham, go get a young quarterback and let him grow? Or are we going to bring Eli back to say, okay, Odell, work with Eli and let's fix some pieces around it and see what that looks like? Sooner or later, every team has to go through it.
Well, which one? Which scenario is more likely for the way the Giants are playing now?
I think that's a scenario that, honestly, this offseason is going to, I think it's going to hit the ceiling because somebody has to make a decision. Odell is asking for a contract, like right now, right? Eli is kind of on that backside of
he's got 2 years left on his contract.
He got 2 years left on his contract. So now you got to as an organization, if you're looking for Collins on the other side, you're saying, wait a minute, I got a young star on the defensive side of the ball, so let me find a way to create and put other pieces around him. But what do we do on the offensive side of the ball with Odell and Eli? And I think, honestly, somebody's going to have to make a tough decision. Either we let Eli go and bring a young quarterback in, or either we ride Eli out and say, how many more years will we have with Eli and Odell doing this together?
Listen, Eli was a part of those 2 great playoff runs.
Yeah.
But Eli, as far as just, being an elite, productive passer in the regular season,
it's not that.
It's never been that.
Not that.
It's not like, oh, wow, Eli fell off a cliff.
Right.
It looked like Eli fell off a cliff 4 years ago. The year that he had 27 touchdowns and 18 interceptions, last in the NFL in passer rating. What happened the next year? They drafted Odell Beckham, and his career had a mild resurgence. They made Ben McAdoo the offensive coordinator. They then made Ben McAdoo the head coach. Yeah. And now it's all fallen apart. Part of that is Odell being gone. Part of that is Eli deteriorating. Part of that might be that Ben McAdoo got promoted 1 job above where he should be. But I don't think they're going to fire the head coach. We know they're bringing back Odell and going to give him the deal. The owner has said as much. The one major change you can make is the quarterback. They're going to have a top pick. Whether they want to use that pick on the quarterback or if they want to use the last few games, see if Davis Webb, who they drafted in the 3rd round, has any answers, that's up to them. But I would be shopping Eli Manning this offseason, seeing if Jacksonville, with Tom Coughlin, wants him, seeing if Denver wants to try, Manning Part 2. Same thing they did.
He's better than all the quarterbacks in Denver.
Right now he's better than all those quarterbacks in Denver. And so see what they can do, because I don't think a universe exists where the New York Giants, with Eli Manning as their quarterback, have another deep playoff run in them moving forward. So then you got to figure out, how do you most graciously exit yourself from one of the greatest players, one of the most prolific players in the history of your franchise?
I go to him. If I can't make the trade, you mentioned Jacksonville, you mentioned Denver. Also, I would look at Arizona, where Bruce Arians and Steve Keim, the general manager, because they're in business. Carson Palmer is probably going to be his last year, so they would be looking for a veteran. But also, I tell Eli, man, you got to give some of that money back. Yeah,
if you want to stay.
No, if you want to stay here, I need a reduction in your salary, like a lot of veteran quarterbacks have done. Also, your play has suffered, and there's not a whole bunch of openings out there for Eli to have some type of leverage.
So do you have that conversation with him?
Absolutely, man. I don't have no problem with it. Right. Invite him to my office in the building across the street. I'll tell him myself. This is the way it's going to happen. Now, I'm going to give you a salary reduction for these next 2 years. If you want to play 2 more years with the Giants, that's fine by me. If you decide not, then I'm going to be actively shop you this offseason.
But as a team, though, with him playing the way he's playing right now, do you take
Listen, I like Eli.
Yeah.
Eli is not a great leader of a football team. Eli might be a good guy, might be able to lead the offense, but this team has been off the rails for a few years as far as their overall discipline, their overall leadership. Like, Odell respects Eli, but he don't listen to him. And there's a difference between the two.
It's a big difference.
So for me, I'm going for a reduction. That's what I'm going to offer him as a courtesy, because you brought us 2 Super Bowls. I'm going to give you a reduction in salary from Jerry Reese. If you don't want to take that, then we're actively going to shop you. We're going to be picking. I mean, the Browns in San Francisco, 0-8, 0-9.
Right, and they play San Francisco this week.
Yeah, you got a top 5 pick. So there's a quarterback sitting there waiting on you.
We weren't having this conversation day 1 of the season when we were all getting ready to pick teams. I mean, you thought they were a decent team. You had them going to the Super Bowl. We all had them at least at the top, somewhere near the top of their division. They were coming off a great season last year. They had a defense that they put a lot of time and money and energy into trying to get that defense right. They had Odell Beckham back. Like, everyone thought this was going to be a very big, promising year. Is that all Eli's fault? Is Eli the one guy you have to switch out and everything is better?
I don't think everyone thought the Giants were going to have a big year.
Yeah, I didn't.
Nick Wright.
I didn't. Nick Wright did. I didn't.
Okay, go ahead.
No,
I'll take that. I'll take that. Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
Well, from the offensive side, you're absolutely correct. It's Eli Manning. But from the defensive side, what I saw yesterday, I'm telling you, Landon Collins has to figure out. He has to go in there and sit down and watch film and look at the guys that he wants to play with. Because I watched guys yesterday on that football field yesterday.
Yes.
After putting up 51 points, it's certain people I'm not playing with playing like that.
There was a couple plays with the effort.
Man, the 3rd and 33 was an embarrassment.
That was.
Yeah, they ran a jailbreak screen. and looked like they was playing two-hand touch.
I want you to, if anybody do anything, go back and look at a couple of plays.
Yes.
And I just want you to watch the pursuit of what the defense supposed to look like and never looked like yesterday. So I think it's a much bigger fix.
Well, so let me. A lot of the commentary yesterday after the game was that the defense was quitting on plays, and that's an indictment of the respect for the head coach. We're out here talking about Eli because it's you played on defenses. That didn't. Hold up. This is not my commentary. I want
Where'd
this.
You get it from? Then?
What? I want this.
You brought it up.
Correct. This is. I'll show you the articles. I'll show you what. But it was a lot of people were saying that's a team that's quit on their head coach. If not to throw anyone under the bus, but my guy Rodney Harrison said it on TV last night. That's a guy. That's a team that's quit on their coach.
Yeah.
Is that?
There's people on TV don't know what they're talking about too.
Agreed. But I'm asking Ray as a defensive player, when you see that lack of effort. Is that always an indictment on the coach, or is that just an easy thing people say?
If you're the leader on that defense and you're Landon Collins, you're having a separate meeting from the offense today. And all you're doing is running the film. That's it. Because that right there, what you put on film, is simple. Either you want to play or you don't. And yesterday is a bunch of guys did not want to play.
Man, we ain't out there playing for the head coach. I'm out there playing for my family. I'm out there playing for my safety. I'm out there playing for my brothers. I ain't playing for no head coach. You think he calling plays for my job? You think he going home at night thinking, I wonder how Cris and his family doing? No, they don't think that way. I'm out here playing for my brothers who I have made a commitment to. I'm going to give you my absolute best. And when I don't do that, I'm accountable to you.
You better tell
like,
me.
you can come talk to me. Forget McAdoo. Ain't nobody playing for no head coach. That's stupidity.
We are back on First Things First. Greg Jennings is still with us. Greg, the injury-plagued Redskins, and by injury-plagued, I mean they lost 4 out of 5 guys on their offensive line alone, still getting the win on the road in Seattle, no less. Russell Wilson had an inconsistent performance. He threw for nearly 300 yards, but he also threw 2 interceptions. Here's Wilson after that loss.
At the end of the day, you know, we can pout and everything else. You know, that's the easy thing to do. But I think for us, we have to have a tough mentality. You know, we have to have a mentality of never giving up and never giving in. And I think that we showed that continually, game in and game out. We showed that tonight. We had a chance there. We would believe that we were going to win, and they made a couple more plays than us at the very end there. And that's all that was.
All right, Greg, so let's look at this game. Who's really to blame here more for the Seahawks loss? Did they lose or did the Redskins win?
The Redskins won.
Ooh.
I truly, I'm on and have always been on the Redskins bandwagon. They just have been, as you alluded to, injury prone. But when you look at the Seahawks and what took place this game, I think what stands out to me is they're relying on Russell Wilson to do it all. Flat out. They're relying because they have no running game. They can't do anything other than say, Russell, if the pass isn't there, extend the play and do something special. And he's been able to do that, especially late in the games. But another thing that stands out to me is late in this game, their defense has always been their bell cow. And without an Earl Thomas back there, you saw that this defense is just different in the passing game. You never saw them have a lead and then give up a late score like this. You just didn't expect it because the standard was so high and their level of play was so great.
Greg, I got to ask you a question. Last week, I'm sure you thought this. These guys definitely did. We said this Seattle Seahawks team is lights out. The way they played against Houston was incredible. They were great top to bottom. You did. We all lauded them as the great team.
Didn't they give up 45 points last week?
They did.
38, I think. It was 41-38.
But we still said Russell played well, they played well, and then all of a sudden you turn around and you're hosting the Redskins and you lose this game. What happened to them?
The Redskins are not a bad football team.
All right, I just wanted to see if I asked you in a different way, if you would answer it differently, but you agree.
I do.
But there's a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde component to the Seahawks offense. Like, that's who I put the blame on. Like, I understand the defense gave up a touchdown at the end. The defense had been holding Washington the entire game. The defense was the only reason Seattle was on the scoreboard at halftime, was because of a safety. The defense sacked Kirk Cousins 6 times. The offense could do nothing throughout the bulk of the game. And listen, I understand the defense had 2 bad plays when you only need at the end of the game. When you need to hold, you're up 4 instead of 3, which is a big difference. You're only guarding against the touchdown. So the defense had some miscues late in the game, this play and the play following. With that said, you got to score more than this at home. You can't score 14 at home and say that should be enough to win, no matter how good you think your defense is. Like, Seattle so often seems to play offense, and last week notwithstanding, the game against the Colts, a terrible team notwithstanding, as if the plan is to as little as possible until the last moments. You know what I mean? Wait, then Russell will bail us out. And yesterday, they tried to do it again, and then the defense had 2 bad plays, and they lose the football game.
Their defense is totally different when they're missing one of several players. If Richard Sherman's not on the corner, 24, they're not the same defense. If they happen to Bobby Wagner, if he happened to be injured, which he's not, in the middle, they're a different defense. When Cam Chancellor is not playing on this defense, they're a different defense. We know Earl Thomas, he was out last week. A lot of people during the week didn't look at Seattle. How different are they going to be? Well, he popped his hamstring in the Houston game when DeAndre Hopkins had the long run. So he didn't practice all week. They ruled him out on Friday. So anytime Seattle does not have all 3 of those guys in the secondary, there's going to be problems. What did Washington and Jay Gruden do? They isolated the rookie, all right? They isolated him in the slot, made a big play on him because they knew they had to play man-to-man, and they had to blitz the quarterback, and they isolated him on Dotson at the end of the game. But you know, in cover 1, Greg, what would typically happen? When the quarterback would eyeball that number 1 receiver, who would come over to erase it or make a big hit?
Earl.
That's Earl Thomas. He is the ultimate deodorant for Seattle. He is the ultimate eraser as a free safety. So you guys can point blame, but when they don't have that secondary, all right, because their offensive line is not going to be very good this year. Yes, they got Dwayne Brown. He had 3 practices, basically 2 or 3 walkthroughs. They got 3 other bad offensive linemen. Their center is the best offensive lineman, him and Dwayne Brown. All right, the other 3 are not good offensive linemen. That's why they can't run the ball. All the pressure is still on Russell. Eddie Lacy, you can't pay a fat guy, okay? Fat guys can't play football unless they're in a 3-point stand.
He said that, Greg.
He's right.
That's what he said.
He tried not to say it initially. And then
if Eddie Lacy was just a shell of himself, how different would this offense be?
They would definitely be a different.
Because it's not about yards, it's about attempts, and then you get to the play action where you can throw the ball down the field. I mean, Seattle right now is Russell Wilson, but as much as they complain, the defense complained about that offense, the defense had a chance to win the game and didn't get off the field. That's where all the money on the offense is, on the defense, besides Russell. All right, so they should have won the game. So who do I blame? I blame the defense for not stopping them with 4 points up late in the game.
See, I find it, I struggle to blame the defense because they played a really good game. They just didn't close it out. And again, to your point, I'm not saying that the defense didn't play great and they didn't, and it was their fault. But what I'm saying is, to the point that you were making, when Earl Thomas or Sheldon Richardson or any of those guys aren't there, they just look different, especially late in the game when you have everything is on you. You don't see too many defenses that say, nope, we want to be on the football field when it's time to close out a game. Seattle's defense is that defense, and they just haven't been able to do it.
I get the final point on this. So Carolina did close out their game, right? Atlanta had the ball down 3. Carolina forced a 4-and-out, and they end up winning the game. Both those defenses.
Julio dropped the touchdown before that.
Okay.
So he got some help.
I understand that. But the point that I'm trying to make is both those defenses allowed 17 points. Like, the difference was Carolina's offense found a way to get to 20. Seattle's offense couldn't get to 20, even though they had a safety, even though they had 6 sacks. Like, I know the money is spent on the defense. I get that. You got at home. You got to be better against Washington, who's got a good, not great defense. You've got to be better. You got to score more than 2 touchdowns.
How are they going to score when they can't pass protect? How are they going to score when they can't run? How are you going to score?
Right, but that's some of the things they need to be better at, CC.
Well, that offensive line, they got better at left tackle, but this is going to be part of Seattle for the rest of the season. Like, we can't. It's not change the storyline because of last week. No, that offensive line is not going to be great. I don't know. There's no miracle coming. Dwayne Brown is a good player, but that unit takes more than one good player. That is the most important unit on the football team.
Welcome back to First Things First. A year after Cris Carter went into the Hall of Fame, he was joined in Canton by another all-time great wide receiver, Andre Reed, who had more than 13,000 yards and 87 touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills.
Had us sitting there waiting on hold. Yeah. At the corner, waiting on our Uber. All them years we was waiting.
How lucky are we that he joins us now? Andre, welcome.
That was a big Uber, too, boy.
Yes, sir.
Uber, man. A lot of guys.
Put me in it, put Andre in it, slide Tim in there. Let's get this stuff done.
Let's get it done. Let's get it
Thanks
done.
for joining us.
It was great to be here, man.
It is great to have you. Well, we were excited you were here because in the morning meeting, we were all going over the A.J. Green, Jalen Ramsey fight, if you will. And as I wouldn't call you a spicy wide receiver, but you got into it a little bit in your time. Yeah. First of all, what did you think when you saw it? And give us a little bit of background. Like, how fired up do you have to get where a game that's already so physical ends up going in that direction?
Well, I mean, those two teams, they're rivals, too. And it's a division game. And talking to Cris just a minute ago, Jalen Ramsey is a different kind of player. I mean, he's like Marcus Peters. He's a little bit off to a certain point. And A.J. Green's a veteran. So if you push, and I don't know what happened the play before, and he might have said something, but when you're a veteran and somebody says something to you, you're going to go off on it. And that's what he did. And you know, he said, I'm taking this penalty regardless of what happens.
Here's the thing that was so surprising to me. And listen, I know Jalen's a talker. We had Jalen on the show. Jalen, a lot of wide receivers don't like Jalen. A.J. Green's about as mild-mannered of a guy that plays the position at a super high level as you're going to find. Him and your nephew, Larry. Like him and Larry Fitzgerald are two guys you don't see this coming from. There was another guy like that, though, Andre Johnson. He was mild-mannered. And one game about 10 years ago, he had enough from Cortland Finnegan, and he gave Cortland Finnegan that two-piece, ripped his helmet off. And so my question to you is, like, is there a trash talk threshold? Like, we know we're going to be talking, we're not going to be going back and forth, but you don't cross line X. Like, is there something that
that is exactly what I want to know. Tell me.
It's a respect factor. And again, a veteran against a guy, what is this, his second year? The respect factor, you got to respect me regardless of who you're going against.
Yeah, you got to respect
Cris, you got to respect what have I accomplished.
Have some respect for the game.
Guess what? I might make you better today. You don't know.
Yeah, the thing about it, anytime you get into personal conversation, it's not about your stats. It's not about what you're going to do that day. A lot of times it might be your manhood. Might say something a little from using a homophobic terms. That's what Odell Beckham, he got into one of his scuffles for. Right. But DBs are supposed to talk garbage. They're supposed to talk trash to get you distracted. Now, of all the players, I'm just going to tell you, A.J. Green is like the guy in the office. He's great at his job. He's really, really quiet. But when he decides to go off, you better leave the office, because he's mad for a reason. Now, I'm not going to justify grabbing someone around the neck and throwing the punches, but this is what I do know. I know A.J. Green, and I know his character. Now, he probably will be suspended for this. This is totally out of character for him, so it's the stuff that leads up to this. Now, Jalen, he looked very, very innocent, but if you watch some of the videos and stuff that he said about other receivers, and he loves to engage in trash talking the whole way. So for me, I'm not going to throw a punch. I'm not going to hurt my hand. I'm a wide receiver, and I'm not going to get thrown out of the game, which hurts my team. So Jalen, he shouldn't have gotten thrown out of the game. He actually won this mental gymnastics battle with A.J.
Who were the corners when you guys were playing that talked the most?
I tell you, it's just a different player. I mean, it's a different player. The Rod Woodsons and the Deion Sanders and those guys, they just went out and played, and you know you had Neas Williams. You had to bring your bag lunch every weekend, and you better have an apple in there. You better have a sandwich. You better have a snack in there, and your bag better be full when you go against these guys every single Sunday.
Typically, the guys who talk the most trash aren't the guys who have a decent resume. So for me, if they talk trash to me, I'm coming from A.J. and Andre. For one, you're going to respect me. You're going to respect what I've accomplished in this league. And then I typically come back with, you know something? You weren't even on the scouting report with your sorry self. Matter of fact, after this game, everyone's going to know you. Your high school teacher going to know you. Yeah. And so you have to be able to fire back with something. For me, I'm a person, I can engage in trash talking, and it's not a matter of motivating me, but I can play the game that way. Everyone can't play the game that way. Dre doesn't play the game that way.
I never played
He's
the
quiet,
game that way.
he's methodical. I'm getting ready to put this ball in the end zone, and that's going to hurt you. Now, on the Buffalo Bills, he had a bunch of other crazy guys on the team, so he was the quiet one.
Yeah.
I just can't believe that grown men find themselves like susceptible to this. Like grown men can be affected by
Jenna, it's by combat sports.
Talking dirty or
Jenna,
talking
it's
trash.
Talking dirty affects grown men in a different way. And that's a different television show that's not on this network.
Hey.
How it's combat sports.
Jenna, your pants don't match.
Jenna, I promise you that's not what the trash they're talking. But it's
Calm down,
Jenna. It's also you got to keep in mind like athletes have never left the locker room. So, like, athletes are the same motivational factors, tell me if I'm wrong here, that work in junior high school and high school. What do athletes get the most excited about? What we see them celebrate? A day off. Like, in every other walk of life, guess when grown-ups get a day off? And they're like, hey, boss, I'm not coming in tomorrow. Like, it's just a different thing. It's physical combat for a living. So, of course, when the testosterone and anger is that high, like, it's susceptible to this. Yeah. I find it interesting that Cece mentioned you were the quiet guy. So did it ever frustrate you as the quiet guy that you were having to deal with some of your teammates who were riling the other guys up with that trash talk?
And the thing is they're trying to get you out of your game. If you're watching film and you see, oh, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah.
How am I going to get him out of his game and just kind of just a little bit, just irk him a little bit where maybe this catch he's supposed to make, he doesn't make, and it's not a first down, and the clock doesn't run. That's really what they're trying to do.
Also, we have a scouting report coming in. Who are the talkers? Who are the guys who don't talk a lot, what their personalities are. So you get a lot of that going into the game. Now, I think it would be safe to say that AJ, this is his first time going against Jalen, all right? Because they don't see each other, right, with the Bengals being in the north, right, and Jacksonville being in the south. So a lot of times you don't know how dirty a guy is or the things that he's going to say that are offensive. So AJ, I think it caught him by surprise that a young player was going to disrespect him at this level. But if you had known the scouting report on Jalen, you should have been expecting it.
Yeah, and he's a man, too, man. They're both men. They're grown men playing a game, even though it's a kid's game. But there's some pride on both sides of the ball. Every time you put that helmet on, there's pride that you have, whoever you're playing for. So
and you knew it was coming. Jalen Ramsey talked trash to Steve Smith as a rookie.
Yeah,
I mean, like, this is the MO on Jalen.
Andre, you don't remember, I covered your team 100 years ago. You didn't play 100 years.
Thank
I was
you.
covering sports. I was covering sports 100 years ago. No, that was a great Bills locker room with Thurman Thomas and
Jim Kelly.
You were there.
Bruce Smith.
Bruce Smith was there. And it was just a great, great locker room. I just wonder what you think of the Bills this year, and if you can give me a quick little scouting report. Do you see this Buffalo Bills team making the playoffs?
Man, I've been 17 years. That's the number. Trying to get in the playoffs for 17 years. And you guys have talked about them all year and the things that they've been doing. They've been winning with defense this year. There's no doubt about it. Their offense has to pick it up. Tyrod has been on the cusp ever since he's been there. Is he the quarterback? Is he the franchise? Are they going to get somebody else? Is this Peterman kid? They're going to put him in. We know this is a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have a good quarterback, 9 times out of 10, you're probably not going to go in the playoffs. You're not going to get to the playoffs. You're not going to be a good football team. But they still have McCoy. And even though he's so-called long in the tooth, he's still doing things that Shady does. But it is their defense that's got them to 5-3. Thursday night, they didn't even show up. I mean, national TV game, bad loss. They got beat on both sides of the ball. But I love what McDermott's doing because he's changing the culture there. And the culture of that football team the last 17 years has been, this guy comes in, he's out for a 3. He's in for 3, he's out. They fire the GM. So many things have been going on with that team all the way from the top to the bottom that, again, I like what McDermott is doing, what Sean's doing. He's bringing that mentality that they need, that they know when they walk in that locker room every week that they can win the game, regardless of what it is.
Andre, break down a trade for me, because I know it's different when you're playing in the elements. All right, you were a guy, got it done playing outside, there should be more respect granted for the climate for which you played in. When you add Kelvin Benjamin, a big 6'5", 245 guy compared to having someone like Sammy Watkins, really fast guy. How much of an advantage it is for Kelvin playing in Buffalo with Tyrod than you see a smaller guy like Sammy Watkins?
No doubt about it. Probably the biggest advantage, because once it gets cold and it's hard to get your footing, when you're a bigger guy, you can get down a little bit.
Yeah, you have more girth. You can get into the ground. You can be more of a mutter.
And I was surprised he didn't play Thursday night. They could have used him. Just his presence on the field could have been a big plus for them. It's funny that you say that, because I did go to the game last night here in New York with the Giants and Rams, and Sammy and Robert Woods had great games. And they said to me, "Hey, can you come around a little bit more, man? We had a pretty good game. You can come around a little bit more."
You tell them you were up there in
But
Buffalo
Jared
when they
Goff
weren't
is playing great football.
Yes.
Todd Gurley's running the ball. That's why the Rams are playing well. But Kelvin Benjamin, the element he brings in, just like you said, big physical guy, can get himself in between the ball and defender. He's going to be a big plus for them in certain situations, especially in the red area.
Andre, tell us a little bit about the Read with Reed 83 Foundation.
I'm so excited about this. I mean, as players, you have things you're passionate about, and we played football. That's what our passion was football every day. I'm in the 5th quarter of my life right now, and I think kids are so important to us. And CC, you know this. Reading is so important. And we took some kids to the game last night, and I told you a quick story that one of the girl that won, she read 45 books in 50 days.
Wow.
And she got to meet, some of the players down on the field, and she talked to Sammy and Robert Woods, and I commend them because they came over and talked to this little 8-year-old girl. And the funny thing is, she went to see Alec Ogletree, and he talked to her, and she said, are you Eli Manning?
She's in the books, man.
She needs to read one more book.
What the funny thing about that is, the great thing is about it, when I was a kid, I didn't have time, my mom and dad didn't have time to read to me. And the Boys and Girls Club was so important to me in my life that I went there every day, and that's why I learned how to read. And one thing about the clubs and what we're doing is we're reinforcing those values that I learned, or we all learned at home, in these clubs, and giving these kids hope to go into the right door.
Awesome.
And do the right things.
That's really, really great.
That's what it's about.
Andre Reed, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
HOF. What's your number, man? What's your number?
285, baby.
285. Yes.
Yes, 285.
I'm 275. There's only 310 of us. Yes, there's only a few of us.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.